Welcome back to the Anime Field Guide. I'm talking with a good friend, Otaku Nate from the Otaku Nate podcast. Nate, how are you doing this evening?
What is up, anime fans? Otaku Nate here, host of the Otaku Nate Show, the anime podcast where we talk about anime that we want to talk about.
Pound the desk for impact so they know you're serious.
Yes, sir. I'm always serious, Captain.
Well, as far as the anime that we want to talk about, obviously we want to talk about Project Echo tonight. But before we get into that, just kind of like a little general icebreaker. What you been watching on any like current seasonals or?
I've never really been much of a seasonal anime guy, to be honest. I'd rather just have something finish airing, get a general consensus about it, and then be the judge of it myself. But there is one thing and one thing only that I'm currently watching from this season, and it is another one of my picks for best anime of the year, and that is Tojima Tanzaburo Wants to Be a Kamen Rider. Or, as we just simply call it online, Tojima Rider. I was made aware of this because it's the same mangaka as one of my favorite overlooked anime from the 2000s, Air Master. So I went in expecting something like Air Master. Tojima Rider? It's got everything! Kamen Rider, music by Teddy Lloyd, shocker, people getting punched in the face, voice cameos from old Kamen Rider actors, and my queen, Yuriko Okada. Oh, I want her to crush me.
I don't. I want to watch her crush other people. And so in that instance, I am being well served this season. This is such a dark. I knew like the Air Master connection through. Again, we have the joint podcast that we sit through and are members of with the Anime World Order. So like obviously it was on my radar. But like saying like a trailer watch or something does not do this show justice at all for like the amount of impact, not just the first episode, but just this season. Like I don't know if I've been caught this much off guard since like Braveheart.
Well, I didn't even read the manga. I'm not a fan of the mangaka's art style. I know that it's kind of like amateurish by design. Natsume Ono in her early days was the same way. You know, you read Not Simple and then contrast it to what she does in something like Aka 13. Like, her art got better over time. I don't know the name of the artist behind Tojima Rider, but his style is just not for me. It's better than, say, the guy who did Aiken, where his art is just out and out bad.
It enters the realm of the grotesque. I do like how the Tokyo movie, TMS, has adapted Kamen Rider. Like as soon as I saw the studio and like some of the staff behind it, I was like, okay, these are, I don't know if it's the same staff as Baki, but I was anticipating that kind of level of action. And as far as the impact frames and the impact scenes, I've been not disappointed in that aspect. Very much on the level. But yeah, absolutely ridiculous, fun, just takes itself completely serious in a completely unserious fashion. I love the absolute commitment from the voice cast as well.
And also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Teddy Lloyd's remix of Let's Go Rider Kick is regularly played whenever I do my 5 a.m. workouts.
What a return they've had for this year as well. New panty and stocking and now Kamen Rider. Dude's on fire.
Absolutely. Can I like talk about some of the other things that I'm watching? Because I'm not a seasonal
Absolutely.
anime guy. Mostly just
absolutely.
because it was the double whammy of Alb Noah Zero and Charlotte that did it in for me in 2014.
Yeah, that'll do it.
I'm more of a guy who just like kind of marches to the beat of his own drum. Like somebody who looks at his anime shelf and says, what am I in the mood for watching now? I'll tell you, I spent $200 on one of those like rotating wire shelving units that you used to see at comic shops. And on that shelf is just like all these giant chonky chipboard anime DVD box sets from back in the bubble era, from like 2004 to 2008. I miss those days, but I kinda don't. It was Bandai, Geneon, Funimation, and ADV, and also Animego and Media Blasters and CPM, but they had one foot out the door. So the other thing that I'm watching is Kaleidostar. I first heard about this one from an ad in, I don't know if you remember this magazine or not. Do you remember Beckett Pokemon Collector?
No, it's my first time hearing of it.
Okay, well, Beckett, the card company, when the Pokemon trading card game first came to North America, they put out a magazine exclusively for Pokemon, and they were one of the first magazines that had exclusive previews of Generation 2 when Gold and Silver were first coming out. And naturally, because they weren't an officially licensed magazine from Nintendo, they couldn't use official Nintendo artwork. So they had their own in-house artist draw some of the second generation Pokemon for those issues. Oh man, some of them look absolutely horrible. But eventually, when Yu-Gi-Oh! Started taking off, it rebranded into Beckett Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Before rebranding into Beckett Anime Collector. And one of those issues, I saw an ad for Kaleido Star. And when I found out that it was directed by one of my favorite directors, Junichi Sato of Sailor Moon, Princess Tutu, and Pre-Tier fame, I had to watch it. And I'm 9 episodes into season 1. Oh, this is good stuff. It is so good. I don't think it's a shoujo anime, but it is definitely shoujo influenced. I'm not using shoujo adjacent, but it's a absolutely brilliant series about a girl named Sora who comes to America to join an acrobatics troupe called the Kaleido Stage. It's all about overcoming her own personal fears, her own hardships, social shortcomings, and the harsh expectations of the boss of the Kaleido Stage, a guy named Kalos. It's got a lot of Junichi Sato's signature directorial flourishes. It just goes to show you that it's why my own hot take is that I think the 2000s were a better decade for anime than the 90s. I mean, yeah, we all love the 90s when it comes to anime, but like, speaking of which, the other thing that I'm watching, I'm almost done with my third watch through of My Hime, which I'm doing for my own podcast. That is the next episode coming out. It was one of the first anime that I remember truly hooking me when I was starting to build my own anime DVD collection. First time I watched through it, I was in love. Second time I watched through it, I was happy to see that it held up. Third time through, this might be a top 10er for me. It's an absolutely wonderful take on the magical girl genre by Studio Sunrise, back when they were in their second golden age of the 2000s. It has an absolutely wonderful main character with Mai and an equally wonderful cast of supporting characters. Everybody gets a moment to show why they're great. Nobody feels left behind. It has an amazing rug pull around the second half, and it absolutely plunges you from like a sea of hype and action to despair and angst. It'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry. It's got a beautiful soundtrack from Yuki Kaijira. It's just this gets the Otaku Nate seal of quality. And also I'm watching Jujutsu Kaisen.
Well, there you go. I've had Kaleido Star and or Pre-Tier on my watch list ever since the Princess Tutu episode. I've been trying to get around to them. Right. Speaking of Sunrise, I'm actually watching Witch Hunter Robin at the moment. Generally liking it. I think it's kind of like a bit of a slow burn. I think on my last episode I said I was watching it and I'm just kind of treating it like something like Ergo Proxy, which took like 10 episodes to really get going. So Robin's starting to show its hand a little bit more. But yeah, with between you talking about Kaleido Star and especially My Hime, those are two that I'm definitely going to move up the watch list. But for me, I am also kind of taking a break from seasonals at the moment. Aside from Kamen Rider Tojima, I also have Gachi Akata that has been like one of my first anime with my friend group was Soul Eater. So of course I am just loving just everything about Gachi Akata and just how wild it's getting. But right now for the podcast, I'm mainly focusing on Chihaya Furu.
Oh, good stuff. I watched the first season this year. I absolutely love it. I need to get to the second season. Right now, between finishing up My Hime, working my way through Kaleido Star, finishing season 1 of Jujutsu Kaisen, and continuing to Jima Rider, my hands are full. Oh, and after all this, I have to watch Brain Powered for the show.
Do you really have to?
My friend and co-host, who I tolerate dearly, Race, has been wanting to do it, so I'm doing it out of obligation for him. Much like, again, how I'm watching Jujutsu Kaisen. I'm watching it so that I can talk about it with all the hip cool kids in a Discord server for local fans.
I did that with Demon Slayer to get ready for the movie, but I actually rather liked my little binge of Demon Slayer. It was one of those of like I was watching it out of obligation at first, but you know, you kind of subject yourself to something like that, and in my view, whenever I'm looking at something like this, it's like it's easier for me to just focus on here's what I think is cool versus like, oh my gosh, I have to watch this so I can, you know, it kind of makes it somewhat less of a slog, but that's just my personal mental.
I did watch season 1 of Demon Slayer and Mugen Train. I actually did like Demon Slayer. Jujutsu Kaisen, though, like, I don't know. Demon Slayer, I get it. My Hero Academia, I get it. Spy Family, love it. Dr. Stone, incredible. Chainsaw Man, awesome. Dandadan, amazing. But Jujutsu Kaisen, I'm like, I wish I liked you. It's a slightly better solo leveling for me. The way I contrast the two is solo leveling is like eating a plain hamburger. Jujutsu Kaisen is like eating a plain hamburger with cheese. Jujutsu Kaisen is the kind of burger you get at your church's cookout. You know, it's just like they get like the really thin burger patties from like Costco or something and put a single slice of cheese on there.
What a ringing endorsement. That just completely sold me on that series. I have nothing to contribute to JJK. Like I've not seen a single solitary episode of it. I feel nothing towards it. So I just
Heed my advice. If you want a good shonen series that's kind of like a meatheads fighting kind of show, go and watch Hinomaru Sumo. It's way, way better. I did a review of it for the podcast. It's less about guys punching each other in the face, or in this case, slapping their bodies furiously, and it's just more about a group of men who are brought together through brotherhood in the art of sumo wrestling.
all right. Well, there you go. As this is our December episode, it may seem a little weird to not be doing something Christmassy, and I get it. It feels like every year there's another anime podcast, you know, covering something like Tokyo Godfathers, and deservedly so. Tokyo Godfathers is a great film, but nothing gets me quite in the Christmas spirit than watching a bunch of teenage girls beat the crap out, well, two teenage girls beat the crap out of each other. There's just something about Project Echo that just inspires joy. So in the spirit of Christmas, we're going to talk about a 1986 film that originally began as a hentai installment. And then they said, actually, we like this too much. We're going to make a proper movie out of it. Now, obviously, a couple other things were involved in that decision. Yeah, I mean, Project Echo is just one of those special films that kind of almost defies explanation. But Nate, you said you have a really good way to get us going into the episode proper. So I'm going to stop yapping and let you take it away for a minute.
I feature Project Echo because I run a panel called The Best Anime Movies You Haven't Seen. And sure enough, on that list is Project Echo. And the way I sum it up is like this. Project Echo centers around a girl by the name of Eiko Megami, who is good friends with a useless, whiny brat named Seiko, and together the two have all sorts of fun adventures together, but lurking in the distance is the jealous, envious rich girl named Biko, who wishes to be rid of Eiko and wants to keep Seiko all to herself, so she hatches a plot to vanquish Eiko and make Seiko her own. Oh, and also there's some kind of plot about aliens trying to invade and conquer Earth, but that's not important.
This is such a like when I was first looking up ideas and when I was first looking at the story around this film, and actually one of the best ways to learn about this film is, of course, I will spend a lot of this episode possibly plugging Discotheque Media, and their excellent restoration and just that perfect edition of Echo, which has all kinds of extra features and specials. Like I usually I have to go and do a little bit of digging. And Mike Toole was just, and crew just really put together something special with this Blu-ray set to where you can basically build an episode like this just off of the Blu-ray features. Like there's so much trivia. There's so much just 80s stuff mixed in here. And so when I'm like looking to start this episode and looking to start my notes, and you see like first off immediately that the production staff is largely comprised of a bunch of people who worked on Urusei Yatsura under Mamoru Oshii and others. And then they were big Macross fans.
I think I'd probably say like it's Macross if it took place in a Tom and Jerry cartoon.
Oh, that's amazing. I like that.
I can see the Macross influence. I can see the Rumiko Takahashi influence. Like there's a straight up Maison. I believe there's a Maison Ikoku reference in like the opening minutes of the series. But I can tell that these people watched a lot of vintage Tom and Jerry cartoons because Tom and Jerry is huge in Japan. And there's a lot of Chuck Jonesian humor in there. I'm a big Chuck Jones fan.
And this, like every little, like if there's one thing to really kind of set the scene is Eiko is one of those films that references anything and everything that was just about popular in the 80s. I mean, like even just the name itself was and like much of this film is just I don't even know what it'd like to call it, like happenstance or circumstance. Like the title Project Eiko was just a placeholder name, but it just stuck. The names Eiko, Biko, Siko, those were placeholder names. It just stuck. Even like the staff, like you can't even do like a regular, well, you can do like a regular rundown for the staff, but it's one of those of like, yeah, you got the director, Katsuhiko Nishijima and then Yuji Moriyama. These two guys were basically sitting here going, look, we've just finished this long, arduous process. Mamoru Oshii kind of left us in the lurch on Urusei Yatsura. We finished our obligation on that cartoon. We're all burnt out. We're tired. It's also the OVA boom. Like everything, like it's the peak bubble economy. There's money going in. Of course, speaking of Mamoru Oshii, you just had Dallos in 1983. Then you had Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli. They're getting off the races. They just did Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind in what, 84, 85? I think it was 84.
85. It was 85.
It was 85? Okay, my first instinct was right.
I would also like to correct you that it was not Studio Ghibli, it was Topcraft.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry. I meant Topcraft was Nausicaa. Studio Ghibli, I had Studio Ghibli was getting ready for Laputa, and so I read ahead. Yes, Topcraft, exactly. Topcraft and Nausicaa, and then Ghibli was getting ready to... They just formed, and it was actually one of the extras. You can see there's an extra with the various magazine editors standing up and promoting their magazines as part of the Project Eiko tour. And on one of the pages, you can see Laputa promotional material next to promotional material for Project Eiko. And then, of course, Angel's Egg. Yeah, Angel's Egg was also in 85. And so there was like a lot of this money going into the anime industry, into the OVAs and the films, and everything was like this prestige and seriousness. And so these guys, Nishijima-san and Moriyama-san, basically got together and said, screw all that. We want to make something silly. We want to make something cool. Basically out of those meetings and something Mamoru Oshii likes the film Used Cars, it basically formed the seeds of what would become this crazy ass movie about high school girls punching each other and then throwing around giant robots. And then there's a giant alien spaceship. And what's the moral of the story? Go to school on time, kids.
Something that Kill la Kill would explore a couple years later. I can't confirm it, but that episode of Kill la Kill where Ryuko and Mako have to get to Honoji Academy on time and they're running late, I would not be shocked if that is a Project Eiko tribute.
Feels very like I go back to Project Eiko and I can go like, I can see some of those Trigger guys and Gainax guys being huge fans of this film. Like, I think this is just an animator's animation film. So much is just put into this.
I'd say it's like controlled chaos in the best way, because so much of Project Eiko, especially that final half hour, is just pure chaos, but it never feels like it's overwhelming you with anything. It doesn't smother you with just joke after joke after joke. Everything is given room to breathe, even if the animation is all kinetic.
Of all the craziness that's going on and like the nonsense lessons or, between all the references and over the top animation. Yeah, there is a very consistent through line. And I think between the bond between Eiko and Siko, kind of forming the glue that is really like the core. And of course that rivalry, the love triangle between Eiko, Biko, and Siko. Well, really like Eiko and Siko, and then Biko's trying to butt in. Like you said, it's just controlled chaos.
There is something that bugs me though. What does Biko see in Siko? Because I'm sorry, like I get why people like Siko, but She's kind of worthless, let's be real.
As far as like being the apple of everyone's eye, like Siko is sitting here, a very bubbly blonde, very loud, very much like she seems to be generally unaware of anything that's going on socially around her. It's like just she completely marches to the beat of her own drum and makes everyone else listen to her play. Like I remember the first time I watched this movie and she started talking like the first introduction with her getting Aiko out of the house, like that's fine. But it's when she started like screaming at the classroom, like during her self introduction. I was like, oh, you're one of those characters. Oh no.
And also her lunches. You want to talk about great visual gags in this?
And it's like the most nightmare bento box you can even think of. Like, what's the most random stuff that we can do? And then, of course, the obvious visual gags of Eiko and Siko just experiencing varying levels of food poisoning. Like that's a classic one.
She made her lunches out of the finest magazine clippings she could find.
Yeah, the exact bento box with the literal magazine clipping in it.
Yeah.
Going like literally cutting through magazines because the first one is just like it's got rice and then she's got some kind of sauce in the shape of a heart, and then it's just random bits of like crab meat and other things, and like it is so hinged that Aiko like takes a small bite of rice and that's enough to take her out. Like she's just dead to the world. Drops the box, and then Siko takes another like little piece of rice, and all of a sudden she's breathing fire. Like these are just the worst, the worst lunchbox you can imagine. And I think the staff are taking bets on, could we actually assemble one of these in real life? And I think even like amongst the most adventurous of them, they're like, no bet.
I mentioned My Hime earlier. I get the same sort of vibe, even though they're two completely different shows in terms of tone and in terms of what they're trying to achieve. My Hime being sort of one of the first like dark and serious magical girl shows. Eiko's a straight up action comedy, but it's also one of those shows where you can tell the staff had a lot of fun making it. Like their hearts really were in it.
Yeah, this is just a rare kind of project. I'm trying to think. Like, Eiko is like your typical fiery redhead. She's always running into action. I liked the first aspect of, she starts running, the way she starts running to school. Like she's running so fast, she's literally dragging Siko behind her. And at first you think, oh, this is just an animation joke, haha, anime, running with your toast in your mouth. But then she's like literally tearing up the pavement. She's going so fast. It's like, oh, is this a gag? Oh no, this is just Eiko.
You don't expect it at first because like, she's late to school. Well, they have to start sprinting, and then all of a sudden she starts peeling out, and she's just out of there like a bullet from a snub-nosed 38. She's like jumping into the air like she's freaking Super Mario.
Crashing through homes and just taking just complete utter detours and dragging poor Siko through like branches and things. But it's okay. It's anime. Everybody arrives. The uniforms are untouched.
Chuck Jones logic.
And then you have, like, speaking of cartoon logic, you have Biko over here, who's the spoiled rich girl, always gets what she wants, has a group of cronies who are all like, one of them is just straight up Kenshiro from Fist of the North Star.
Oh, I love Mari so much.
Mari is great. And then there's Biko's like Lex Luthor logic of she's able to build like 5 giant robots in a night.
I want to say, like, on my rewatch, every time Mari is on screen, she absolutely made me laugh. And I hate to explain the joke, but like, do we want to talk voice acting for a second?
We'll absolutely jump into voice acting.
Okay, because I want to talk about Mari in particular, because Mari has 2 different seiyuu. One male and one female, Baron Ashura style. Her female voice is a girl named Sayuri Ikemoto. I'm looking at her ANN page right now. I think the thing that people would most know her for is that she's Reese Arno from Gundam F91 and Barbara Huntington in the Adventures of Robin Hood anime. But as for her male seiyuu, they swung for the fences on that one and got Daisuke freaking Gowry on there. Daisuke Gowry is one of those seiyuu that I can recognize immediately, because aside from his incredibly deep sub-bass voice, you will recognize him by his growling. It's almost as iconic as, like, say, Shigeru Chiba's screeching when he's Megane in Urusei Yatsura, or the
Oh
narrator
yeah,
in Fist of the North Star, or Norio Wakamoto's signature monotone Norio Wakamoto voice.
it's Norio Wakamoto being playing Norio Wakamoto. Yeah,
Can I tell you my favorite piece of trivia related to Daisuke Gowry and one of the characters he voiced?
yeah. Go ahead.
He voiced a character I would not expect him to voice, but it's only because of what the character sounded like in English. My mind was blown when I found out that, for the initial seasons of the show, he was the voice of Diesel in Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends.
You'll find a lot of surprises when you go into like the Japanese dub over folks when they're doing like movies and TV shows. Yeah, this guy dubbed over George Clooney, and this guy dubbed over Frank Sinatra and such and so.
I just recently did an episode on Lupin the Third, The Castle of Cagliostro, where I had Brady Hartle on,
Oh yeah.
and I was able to blow his mind in two ways, in that Lupin's OG Seiyu, Yasuo Yamada, he was the Japanese voice of Kermit the Frog.
Yes, he was.
And that the Seiyu for Cagliostro in that film, I forget his name, he made a name for himself by being the Japanese voice of Columbo.
God, I know the guy you're talking about, but I can't think of their name. Like it was like 2 episodes or something ago that I was looking at it. Oh man, yeah, you're gonna make me look that up when I finish this. Oh man, but I know who you're thinking about. Yeah. Howdy y'all, post-recording Dave here with our quick Columbo interlude. Japan loves Columbo. He has 2 voice actors actually. He was first voiced by an actor named Asao Koike, he's a singer of like the first ending credit sequence for Ashita no Joe, and then after his death, Columbo was then voiced by Taro Ishida. And this is the person I was thinking of during the episode because Taro Ishida, of course, voices Count Cagliostro in the Lupin movie. He also has a role as Duke Red in the 2001 film Metropolis, as well as voicing the Colonel in Akira. There's a really fascinating story about Columbo's staggering popularity in Japan, but for now, we return to our regularly scheduled episode. Yeah, like as far as our main trio, like I've got our main trio, and then I've got Agent D, and then Captain Napolipolita. I cannot do that 5 times fast. Yeah, because like going for the Japanese Seiyu, when I was going to the English side, I didn't really see that many credits for the girls on the English cast. I mean, you got like Stacey Gregg, who is Lena Yamazaki from the manga dub from Bubblegum Crash. But Stacey Gregg was actually like the original London stage production of Grease, and she was acting opposite of Richard Gere. Same thing with Danica Fairman for Biko. Susan Summers from Venus Wars. Okay, yeah, the blonde reporter. And then like Danica Fairman's Kanoe from X, the movie. Sophia, when named Amnesia, that's like the bulk of her credits. For Shiko, you got Julia Brahms, Hitomi from Appleseed. Pris, again, from Bubblegum Crash, the manga dub. And then Kyoko from Cyber City Uedo. But for the Japanese side, you've got Eiko, is voiced by Miki Ito. So I'm just now watching Zeta Gundam. So I just heard her as Minerva Zabi. And obviously, like Miki Ito, like we're talking Dragon Ball, she's Android 18. And then she's also got some like longtime roles like Fate, Higurashi, Natsume's Book of Friends, a couple of other as well. Biko is the debut role for Emi Shinohara.
Sailor Jupiter,
exactly. Yeah, I'll also have her as Angel from the Big O, another fan of that show, and then Kaho Mizuki from Cardcaptor Sakura. But I mean, obviously, Shinohara-san is Sailor Jupiter. And then she's not the only one, because for Siko, we have Michi Tomizawa.
Michie Tomizawa.
Yep, Sailor Mars.
Can I also interject 1 minute regarding Emi Shinohara? She seemed to be a favorite for Yoshiaki Kawajiri, as she was in a couple of his works.
Just a few.
She was Charlotte in Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. She was Remi Masuda, that's the sickly girl in episode 3 of Cyber City 808.
Okay.
She was Kagero, the Kunoichi in Ninja Scroll. Like, she was in a couple of Kawajiri works. One of Biko's hench ladies, Ume, I believe she's the chubby girl, her Seiyu is a very early role for Megumi Hayashibara And this was, like, right before she blew up by the end of the decade, when she would go on to be Christina McKenzie in Gundam 0080, female Ranma and Ranma 1/2, Rei Ayanami and Pen Pen in, Evangelion, Lena Inverse in The Slayers, among many, 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 many others. I would also reminisce if I didn't mention my favorite, role that she took on, and that was being both Dr. Atsuko Chiba and Paprika in Paprika.
Recently celebrating 20 years. Rest in peace, Satoshi Kon.
If you want to see just how great a range Megumi Hayashibara had as a voice actress, watch Paprika. Also, speaking of Seiyu, whose voice I recognize without even having to look them up, the captain of, you mentioned his name, I can say this one properly because I am of Italian descent, Captain Napolipolita.
Char Aznavour himself.
Shuichi Ikeda. I recognize that voice anywhere. There's plenty of Seiyu that are known for, like, many different roles. Shuichi Ikeda is unfortunately in, like, the William Shatner, Adam West type of actor where he's known for being only one thing and one thing only, and that is, of course, being Char Aznavour and the many iterations of him, whether it's Char Aznavour, Quattro Bagina, Char's Counterattack, Char Aznavour, Full Frontal in Gundam Unicorn, or Durandal in Gundam Seed Destiny.
Oh yeah, he did do that, didn't he?
Or the golfer that he played in Birdie Wing.
They did bring him back for that. Well, I will say they didn't change his gender in any of those, which it was another thing. I think it was yeah, it was Moriyama-san, because one of the extras here is his commentary. And so he remarks on Shuichi Ikeda when you get to the back half of Eiko and during the big fight with like the big reveal about the captain. And he said like Ikeda-san wasn't too thrilled that like the kind of character he was playing, like really like, you know, just playing like this drunk, but in particular of like, there are no men in this movie. There are male voice actors. There are basically no men in this movie. And so Shuichi Ikeda was like, oh, I was not expecting that kind of twist. But Moriyama was like, but he's a professional, so he just went along with it.
It's been so long since I watched Project Eiko, I forgot about Captain Napolipolita's secret. Yes, I got it.
I like how they kept it until like the very, very end of the film. And like for the record, I think Jay Benedict did a pretty good job as the captain as well. He didn't go like as much of a high register as they had Ikeda-san go. Like they really had Ikeda like really just kind of go really out of like a usual range to hear him. He's usually doing like these like badass kind of like sultry, like deeper deliveries. And they had him going like high as soon as like the twist happened, like, oh no, everybody's a woman. So like including the captain. So when Shuichi Ikeda was basically voicing a woman, they had him going up. But I mean, like Jay Benedict did a pretty good job as well. You know, got also voicing a very like svelte, long-haired, like psychic man, Ashura from Angel Cop, which is another, if you want to talk about another wild OVA series, and I'm 50-50 on if I actually want to cover Angel Cop or if I just want to say like, go listen to AWO. They'll do it much better than I can ever do it. You've got Agent D as well, who spends most of the film, you know, tracking down Eiko and Seiko. Like basically the side plot of the film is while all of the school antics and things are going down and you're steadily building up to the big confrontation, you've got this person is like just spying on this school. But the running gag is he's always getting run over by Eiko and Seiko on their way to school. So this poor person just keeps getting knocked over. And every time you see them, they have something else in a cast until they're like, everything except one arm is in a cast. Like, how is this person even getting around?
Spy D is the Wile E. Coyote of this whole movie. He just simply exists to get hurt in all sorts of different ways. And again, I forgot the big twist at the end regarding both him and the captain. I was like on the couch just laughing my cheeks off at that one.
Yeah, especially because again, we are talking like all of the just amazing seiyuu that we got for the Japanese side. This is Genda Tesho. You know, this is Slugger Law and Dozel Zabi and Mobile Suit Gundam. But I mean, you got Rei and Urusei Yatsura. This is freaking Optimus Prime. This is the Japanese voice for Optimus Prime. All of a sudden, you know, being this, again, supposed to be this cool spy guy, just constantly getting his poor butt kicked across the entire movie. And then all of a sudden, it's revealed that Agent D is this giant Amazoness.
And also, he's Optimus Prime. We can't
We
forget
cannot
that.
forget Optimus Prime as a giant Amazoness. You are welcome for that visual, audience. And then, acting opposite of him in the English side, you got Mark Smith from Dominion Tank Police, also New Dominion Tank Police. He's got roles like Mad Bull 34, Metal Skin Panic, Maddox, also Cyber City 080.
God, man.
Again, bunch of gruff, burly dudes, basically through the 80s. Yeah, Mark Smith.
Oh, he's the hapless intern who got terrorized in episode 1 of Cyber City.
Yes.
Can I say, like, you've talked about the voice actors in the dub. This was a manga UK joint. My current catnip is Canadian anime dubs, or rather I should say Vancouver anime dubs, but one of my other little pieces of anime catnip when it comes to dubs, because I am a dub fan. I wouldn't say like, I'm a dub lover, but I'm an English dub appreciator. If a dub is good, I'll stick with it. I have a soft spot for the old manga UK dubs. Were they cheesy? Yes. Were their scripts over the top and full of cussing? Were they overacted into oblivion? Yes, but there's a charm to them, and I do think that some of their English dubs are unironically good. I don't know if I prefer the Eiko dub over the Japanese side, but you mentioned Cyber City. I unironically love their dub for Cyber City.
Yeah, the next time I watch Cyber City, I'm going to have to rewatch it in English because I watched it completely in Japanese. I will say this for the Eiko dub. I don't think it was, like, if you think of like a manga UK dub, like say, like I mentioned Angel Cop, like you see like something like that was, and you can tell a little bit of the UK accents, like, what was it? The teacher Ayumi, who's a reference to Creamy Mommy. Just straight up Creamy Mommy as character design as a school teacher. But you can kind of hear her accent coming through, but like everybody else plays it pretty straight. I wouldn't say like anybody is overacting, and they're certainly not. I was surprised that they didn't what's the word? They weren't 15ing this dub like at all. This is played pretty straight.
Oh no.
All things considered, this is pretty 1-to-1. They don't really go outside the lines here.
For those who don't know, who are listening, 15ing was in order to get a 15 plus rating on your anime VHS tape back in the day, because, we wanted to sell anime to American audiences as, these ain't your daddy's cartoons. They decided to throw in all sorts of extra cursing. Thankfully, though, Project Eiko has none of that. It is actually a pretty faithful dub for its time, I should add.
You will nothing Devilman about this dub. No.
Nothing Cyber City about that dub either, because I think the only real thing people know about Cyber City is that one video that keeps popping up on YouTube, the worst line in an anime dub ever, without even having to look it up. Hey Benton, don't crap your pants if you see a vampire out there. Get lost. You wouldn't know what a vampire is if one came up and bit off the end of your fucking dick, so get off my case. My favorite line from that dub is when Benton and Sengoku are about to be thrown into a pneumatic press, and the guard overseeing the whole affair says, "Cheer up, gentlemen, you're gonna be flatmates together." Like, you can hear the rim shot off screen. Anyway, we've talked a lot about the English dub, though. I do want to say, yeah, it's a good English dub. This is the only Eiko dub that utilizes the manga UK cast. Every subsequent dub, the Eiko sequels, will use the Vancouver crew from Ocean Studios. And I now wish to watch those English dubs because, again, I am a big fan of the Vancouver cast.
Yeah, the last time I watched the first and last time I watched the sequels, all the movies are up on Tubi TV. So it's the first time I was able to watch all of Project Eiko, or at least like 1 through 4, the main films. And once, like, there's the perfect edition, and I thought at one point to go and get the other films, but now I think I'm just going to upgrade my set to that all-in-one that Discotek just announced for next year. Like they just announced it a couple of like a week or two ago as the time of this recording.
I mean, come on, I'd watch those dubs just to hear Scott McNeil as Captain Napolipolita, which makes sense considering that Captain Napolipolita is a piss take of Captain Harlock, and Scott McNeil voiced Captain Harlock in the English dub for Galaxy Express 3.9. I feel like we could do a whole podcast about the Eiko sequels, just going through them one by one. Project A-ko also, should we talk about its legacy for the English fandom? Because I have a history of it myself.
Yeah, because as far as like why Project Echo is so important, not just for its time, but also like still today and for like just kind of establishing or helping to establish anime in the West. I'm not going to say like Echo was solely responsible for that, but it's very important for one little company in particular. You know, with Central Park Media, this was their first video release in '91. They did it alongside Dominion Tank Police and MD Geist. And there's actually a really cool interview series put out by Animego that they call like the anime business. And I think it's episode
Yeah.
like 2 or 3 when they start interviewing, like when CPM comes up. And they say like, why Echo in particular? It's like because it's so referential. It was referencing everything that was popular at the time. And not just that, but it was also, parodying on certain aspects of our cartoons as well. But this was like, this established Central Park Media also the big deal with like Richie Zito and Joey Carboni doing the soundtrack, which we'll get into that a little bit later. But this was really huge in the VHS days. You know, this was something like folks were watching it subtitled. Then we had the manga entertainment. They had the dub version in '92. And then we had the Sci-Fi Channel during the Festival of Japanese Animation. Like this was just a big deal and just really establishing like anime fandom. Because again, Macross also came over here. A lot of us were fans of that. And, Robotech was huge, which, Macross is a part of all of that. And so Eiko was just part of this initial like big wave of that popularizing Japanese anime through the 90s that would, again, eventually pave the way for when people talk about, 90s fandom. They're really kind of talking about the mid to later 90s, like the Toonami kids. No, we got to talk about the sci-fi kids on this episode.
I was not a sci-fi kid, unfortunately. I was too young for that. I am a part of the Toonami generation.
Me as well.
So but I do want to add that wasn't Project A-ko CPM's first or third home video release?
It was their first. It was a 3-parter, but Project Echo came out first, and then it was like Tank Police and MD Geist. They were basically all around the same time, but Project Echo is like they say Project Echo was their flagship.
That makes sense. I believe it was like a bidding war between them and Animego because Animego had the chance to license it, but they went with Maddox 01 instead, and that left CPM to pick up Project A-ko. You talk about it, though, being extremely referential. I see a lot more anime references in there. There are a couple of real-world references in there as well. The title, Project A, is, of course, a riff on the old Jackie Chan film, Project A.
Right. And again, like they just had it sitting there as a placeholder. Like it had nothing in this movie is even like referencing Jackie Chan in the slightest. They just had it sitting there. Because again, another thing to remember is, I said at the top of the episode, like the studio that made Project A-ko is not like what you would consider like a major studio. You know, Project A-ko was produced by A3P, another Pushpin Planning.
Yeah, that is correct.
And so these guys are like, if you're talking about a movie that is a super influential movie that no one like typically knew about, Project A-ko is kind of like, like A3P is like part of that like studio that's like super influential that nobody knew about. Like this was their big thing. Like over in Japan, A3P was mostly known for making Cream Lemon, which was a hentai anthology, very popular in the 80s. You know, they produced it cheap, but it was still pretty high quality for what it was. And Cream Lemon like just went on a pretty good run through the 80s. They had spin-offs and things. Like we're talking like 38 episodes of a porno anthology, from soap opera to sci-fi parody and all the other things that you would expect. So Project A-ko was supposed to be episode 3.
I actually saw a Cream Lemon poster in my Facebook feed, specifically for the Pop Chaser entry, and I shared it on my timeline, and I said, you would not believe that this was a poster for a hentai.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like Cream Lemon was highbrow, but it did command a certain level of respect in the fandom at the time. And again, you don't go for 38 episodes and more if you're not doing like something right in that anthology. But that was mostly what A3P was known for. A-ko was like their really, really big breakout hit. Like no one really expected it to take off as much as it did. But well, between Aiko, you also have Robot Carnival, that anthology work, and that was the next major feather in their cap. And then of course, when you talk about the late '90s and such, or like early to mid late '90s, you're of course talking about Golden Boy from '95 to '96. Hiroyuki Kitakubo. A3P animated that. It's you start going through, and it's like, okay, you got Robot Carnival and Golden Boy, which is still like folks really still hold those series in high regard. And Project Echo is like sitting in the middle of all of that.
Oh, Robot Carnival is one of my favorite movies ever. And again, it's one that I feature in my favorite anime movies you haven't seen panel.
Absolutely, because a work like that, Katsuhiro Otomo was very much known for popularizing that style, that anthology style of film, because you could have all kinds of directors and animators and all these different styles featured in all these different ways in one package. And that's what Robot Carnival brought to the table. And so many legendary mech designers as well, and robot designers. Like there's a whole thing we can go on about Robot Carnival. And some of those folks were also working on Project Echo, because again, a lot of Macross fans and folks who actually worked in that cartoon as well. Like you had on mech designs just for Project Echo, you had Shoichi Masuo, who'd been the assistant animation director on Do You Remember Love? He later did, you can see, so actually, what I think when I see some of the mech designs for the big ship, like the alien spacecraft in Project Echo, immediately brings to mind the Railgun ships from Irresponsible Captain Tyler, which he also designed those ships. And then, of course, he's bringing in animation and animation direction from Gainax. Masuo-san worked on the Royal Space Force. He worked on Gunbuster, Nadia. He was attached to Neon Genesis Evangelion and those rebuilds. And he was also a guest animator on Giant Robo. Like this guy, that's just a sampling of what this guy was doing, going from Echo and beyond. So prolific animator until he passed away in 2017. And working with him is Koji Ito of Dominion Tank Police, also of Captain Tyler, Eat Man, Sidebuster. He was also, if you're talking like 2010s.
Geisters. How can we forget Geisters?
Geisters, yeah.
The less said about that one, the better.
Yeah, but he was also chief animation director on Humanity Has Declined. So, I mean, not everything's a miss.
True.
And just such a specific gathering of talent that came in to work on this project. And even like this film, you said earlier, like Controlled Chaos, where this whole thing was basically the brainchild of Katsuhiko Nishijima and Yuji Moriyama. And a lot of the process was like, sure, they had a production pipeline, but a lot of this stuff, they didn't even storyboard. They were basically just making it up as they were going along. And then like you would have animators essentially going like, hey, I want to do this scene where Biko starts doing this weird flag dance for no reason. Sure, it's in the movie. It's almost like the Gremlins 2 pitch meeting. It's in the movie.
I think it's just one of those movies where just everything came together naturally. They didn't necessarily have a central storyline. There was no real big planning about it. It was just a bunch of guys who had a lot of cool ideas, and they just found a way to make it fit together. Like, there's a lot of series that have a lot of good ideas, but, like, it tries to do too much with them, or they can't find a way to make a cohesive narrative. It's like a good Looney Tunes cartoon, like, back during the golden age from, like, the 40s through the 50s, where you just get a bunch of, like, really good gags all strung together. The punchline could go any which way, and the one they end up with is not what you'd expecting, but it still makes you laugh the hell. Like, very early on, I mentioned Mari earlier. One of the scene that made me laugh the hardest, because I forgot how it ended, the confrontation between Seiko and Mari.
The best rock, paper, scissors game, and that whole point about Seiko just being completely oblivious.
Oh, yeah. Because, you see Mari, hulking behemoth of a woman, and, you've got, like, little tiny Seiko, and you're wondering, oh, God, where's this gonna go? And, like, you just laugh your ass off at the absurdity of it all.
Mari's about to punch Seiko's lights out, and Seiko just goes, paper! Because Mari's making this fit. It's just like, what? You can see her brain just break for a second. I love the facial expressions in this movie. They really just went all the way. Like Mari just starts to sweat. Like, okay, she starts rearing back again to wind up another punch and to do a chop, and Seiko goes, "Scissors! You're not very good at this game, are you?"
There is a gold mine of faces. Like if you're someone who collects reaction image faces to use in like Discord servers or on social media, there is a lot of untapped potential for golden reaction images in Project Echo.
I love how just exasperated the teacher is always. Poor Miss Ayumi never gets a break. Also, their lessons are like just one verbal garbled away from a Charlie Brown cartoon.
It's almost as bad as the English lessons in Dear Brother.
Yeah, just about. It is like there's so many times where this film will just sneak in jokes, and not even to like there's so many things where this movie came out again. You had the VHS, but of course this is the Laserdisc, and people always like to go frame hunting through the Laserdisc, and this is a film just absolutely made for it. From the graffiti on the walls to blink and you'll miss it. They'll make references to, again, it was going to be a Cream Lemon anthology. So there are various Cream Lemon characters scattered through the classrooms.
There's a girl student with a mustache in the background.
For some reason, because they just thought it would be funny. There's like, they'll have both a reference and then you'll see like one character who's like, either has like a funny mustache or there's one outside the school right before like Umbiko is, I'm trying to remember if it was the first or when she had the fiver. I think it's the first time she tries to sick a robot on Eiko. And all of the other girls in the school, this is an all girls high school, by the way. So all the girls are surrounding them going, oh, they're about to fight. And then one of them, like her eyes are vertical and she doesn't even have like a mouth. Like it's just, what is this? What is this alien in the background? All of the shops are names or just references. I think there was even like a poster for Kimagure Orange Road. Or it's just like, I think it's like one of the main characters of Orange Road. They just gave her white hair against a background that just says orange.
One of the movies that Eiko and Seiko, or should say one of the movie posters that is featured on the movie theater for the movie that Eiko and Seiko see is Jackie Chan's Spartan X, aka Wheels on Meals. And I should also say, can we talk about the movie that Eiko and Seiko see? Because this is a deep cut if you're into sports.
Which so you're not talking about the Harmageddon movie?
No, I'm talking about The Curse of the Colonel.
Oh yeah, that was a sports thing. I thought it was it's like
yes!
it's a Harmageddon reference, but there's some reason I knew that was a piece of trivia, but I didn't write it down. Yeah, you do it because you have it.
Okay. So for those who don't know their sports history, let alone the history of Japanese baseball, because that's a whole separate rabbit hole you can go down, in 1985, the Hanshin Tigers, a team that's based out of Osaka, I believe, won the Japanese Baseball World Series. Now, their stadium had a life-size statue of Colonel Sanders on the concourse. And when Hanshin won the World Series, the fan base went bananas for it, and to celebrate this World Series victory, they uprooted the Colonel Sanders statue and tossed it in the Osaka River. And they were rewarded the next year by missing the playoffs. And for the longest time, the Hanshin Tigers, they were pretty much the Boston Red Sox of Japanese baseball. They were either making the playoffs or choking in spectacular fashion, or just going through long periods of darkness. But I believe like within the last 2 years, they have won the Japanese World Series. So the curse is officially broken. And I should also point out that eventually they did find the Colonel Sanders statue that was sunk in the Osaka River. And they've placed it on the concourse. It's still faded and like it's missing a lot of the paint, and specifically it's missing its left hand, but that was sort of part and parcel as to how the Hanshin Tigers returned to relevance. So I think it's pretty funny that they took this obscure reference for those who aren't into baseball and just stuck it in the movie. It's a funny gag if you know it, and it's a funny gag if you don't know it. As I like to say, the best references are the ones you don't know are supposed to be references to something.
And I think part of what drives just so much passion for this film is because like they went their extra mile to include all of those gags. You know, there's also, I keep harping on Macross, but there's also the classic thing of missiles being Pepsi cans, or also sake cans.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, there's 2 Pepsi challenge cans in that one scene where the Air Forces are attacking the base, yeah.
You've also got, again, we've mentioned Captain Harlock, which, again, the giant spaceship. For the most of the movie, you see this spaceship going through, and it's slowly approaching Earth. Very much supposed to be the Arcadia from Captain Harlock and Galaxy Express and all of that. And obviously, Captain Harlock is piloting it. You don't question it. They do the classic. They pull a Spaceballs. Even during the design process, they were shown the designs for this ship, and folks are like, "Isn't this just like?" Isn't this too ridiculous? No, it's not too ridiculous. Of course, the spaceship is 4 miles across. Draw it. Let's have the Space Force and let's hide it. But it's not until it's actually descending and like the ship is almost as big as the city itself. And so all of a sudden, all of those aircraft looked like just flies buzzing around it. Also, this movie blows up real good. Like, there's some really good explosions in this film. Everything mechanical in this movie is not long for this world. Every spacecraft basically goes boom. Every space station goes boom. The city goes boom twice. And the school goes boom repeatedly through the movie series. Becomes like a recurring gag.
The final shot of Project A-ko of Graviton City with the spaceship impaled on that giant skyscraper is just
It's a chef's kiss. It's Project A-ko in a nutshell. That's you don't need anything else.
You don't see destruction like this in anime today. I dare your average solo leveling brain to watch that final scene from Project A-ko and tell me that something like Solo Leveling or Jujutsu Kaisen has better animation than Project A-ko.
Like at some point in the fight, they're literally like just throwing toys against each other. They are throwing tanks against each other. I was like, there are people in those tanks, right? There are
Oh
people
my
in
god.
all that aircraft. Don't think about it. It's
Oh, the tank fight! The tank fight between Echo and Biko!
that's one of my favorite parts of the film. Biko literally says, "Spider tank attack," and Eiko picks up a tank. She goes, "Spider tank counter." And they throw 2 tanks into each other, and they explode. And then another one, like Eiko jumps onto a tank, spins the turret around. It goes, "Eiko tank attack, fire, boom!" Trying to shoot Biko. I mean, it is just. You want to talk about mass carnage on a just a ridiculous scale. Like also like when Eiko is ladder stepping her way up to the spaceship, there's so many missiles being fired that she's able to jump from missile to missile.
Oh, I think that might be my favorite scene in the whole movie. Just the absurd visual of Eiko just skipping across missiles, like, she's skipping across stones on a pond or something, or like one of those little Zen gardens that have like the stone platforms floating in the water. It's pure anime at its best. I think the thing that comes closest to it for a recent example is the opening scene in Symphogear GX where Hibiki, Chris, and Tsubasa have to stop an out-of-control space shuttle from crash landing on Earth, and it's one of the most absurd things you'll ever watch, and the only thing I can say about that scene is poor K2.
I do have one little mention because there was from Moriyama's commentary, he was listing off key animators left and right. So I do want to say for the missile sequence, that was key animated by Sakasa Dokite. And so he's known for animation direction on, again, Urusei Yatsura, Meisane Koku, and The Dirty Pair, another series of 2 girls blowing shit up. And so, yeah, him animating the missile sequence won him the Atom Awards for Best Director of Animation. So that's named after Tetsuwan Atom, the Astro Boy. And yeah, his work on and like Osamu Tezuka himself was like, that was a really excellent missile sequence. Like, well done. He got an attaboy for that one.
You really nailed it with Project A-ko. Is that it's just because this wasn't just something that was cooked up in a boardroom or they had like some kind of grand vision for it. It was just a bunch of guys who got together, who had all sorts of ideas for something they wanted to make. The guy in charge wanted it to be a hentai, but the other people said, nah, let's make this more of a straightforward action comedy. And some guy said, well, what if we had like a little space opera that took the piss out of things like Macross and Captain Harlock, and like, okay, well, what if we had, giant robots in there, because chicks dig giant robots and all that stuff. It's just a bunch of creative people who came together to make something truly, truly special. We didn't even talk about the robots for this, because do we want to talk about the greatness of Max 5000?
Yeah, because the Max 5000 is certainly the most functional robot in the whole show. I have no issues with this design whatsoever, especially the fact that there's a fan that in there to keep the pilot cool when the robot starts transforming.
Guard did something like that.
Not only is it a cool transformation, but it keeps like just all of the there's just always again there's a Looney Tunes aspect to it. And I also just love the buildup of Biko going like, here's all of its features. And this is how this robot is going to kill you 5 different ways. And the poor girl can't reach the controls because again, Biko built this overnight, so she had no thought for, how the person inside was going to get all contorted when the robot went from car to upright.
They should have just listened to old Phil Funny. Simple designs fly just fine. Props to anyone out there who got that reference. I think they were probably like taking the piss out of just how complicated and ridiculous certain gatai sequences were getting. Like Daimos, we're a few years removed from Tosho Daimos, I think 8 years by this point, and like you had gatai sequences that were taking up like a whole minute of a show's runtime, 2 minutes in some cases, and this was them like probably mocking the idea of a gatai sequence that's just so crazy and over the top that it ultimately reaches its logical conclusion.
And then for some reason there's a deer spook in there, like one of the water and the bamboo. There's a deer spook in there. There's a little windmill in there. There's all kinds of just gizmos and gadgets in the pilot's thing. And then of course you've got what did she call them? Like the big 5, the 5 multicolored robots. I was half expecting for them to form a Voltron. I'm partially disappointed that Biko didn't have that idea, because it's just 5 big battle robots that the Eiko then just completely tears asunder.
They look like a mix between like a Zaku and Gelgoog from Mobile Suit Gundam.
They really do. Like, I really wouldn't be surprised if they were sitting there going like, how close can we do a legal dodge to Gundam? They are very Zaku-like. They are very like round and Gelug and Zaku-like with the mono eye.
Captain Napoli Polita is just Captain Harlock with the serial numbers filed off.
Oh yeah, and just way many more degrees drunker. I also love how the captain gets progressively drunker through the film. What was it? The sound effect for the sound effect for the helicopter.
The auto gyro, straight out of
the auto gyro
that they probably stole from Laputa.
Yeah, it sounds it sounds beat for beat exactly like Laputa. Like someone walked into Ghibli's offices and walked out with a tape. Like it's not even close. You have no defense for that one. It still gets me.
I'd like to talk about the soundtrack for a moment, because like we've talked about like all of our favorite parts. Yeah, because they got the Gem and the Holograms people, right?
Yes, they got one of the singers. One of the actors,
Samantha Newark.
Yeah, they got Samantha Newark. So for the soundtrack, this was something like they had been shopping around the soundtrack for a while, and I'm talking they had months, just a few months before the premiere of the movie. They didn't have a soundtrack. And so it was the head producer on the film, Nomura-san, and then I believe as the audio director was Honda-san. They were still trying to figure out the soundtrack. And it was basically a friend of a friend that said, well, why don't you reach out to Joey Carbone? And this specifically, like Richie Zito and Joey Carbone, we got our 2 boys from Brooklyn who grew up like on the same street together and like across the street from each other. And they had this shared love of music. And they decided like this is particularly for pop music. And so, yeah, these are 2 like guys who really just, again, exploded during the 80s, and both have had really big careers. Richie Zito is more like the prolific guitarist and the set musician. So in the 80s, he was like touring with Elton John, like playing guitar in his backing band. He performed with Cher, Heart, White Lion, Poison, Diana Ross. The list goes on. And, he also composed like his only other anime credit, Richie Zito's only other anime credit is for Hellsing 2001. And that's for the song Shine, which is sung by Mr. Big. But Richie Zito is also performed Mr. Big. And Zito is credited for the lyrics of Shine. But Joey Carboni is the guy who was really well known in Japan, particularly off of he just had the song that I sent you. You know, I need a DJ in my life. What was it? Yeah, Annie Livingston, one of the singers. Joey Carboni produced literal thousands of songs for the Japanese commercial market. He's got songs for anime, Samurai 7, Kodocha, Mad Bull 34. He
Ugh.
also did music for the Ray Earth OVAs, then Phantom Yusha Densetsu. So they had their studio out in Los Angeles, and I believe the studio was owned, yeah, this is the home studio of George Derrick. And I kid you not, I just watched the extras today, and they said they basically had this thing banged out in 2 weeks. Like from start to finish, songs and everything. Nomura and Honda-san, they actually brought a film crew to Los Angeles, and they did this recording like a behind the scenes, which became Project A-ko Secret File, which is like that 30-minute deal of here's behind the scenes stuff, voice actors, the singers, the musicians, all of that stuff, the production crew as well. And so these guys with George Derrick, they had the whole thing done in 2 weeks. They had no film to work with. They were basically sent liner notes and character designs. Most of it was in Japanese, which none of them could read, or like poorly translated English. So they just had like character designs, and they said, here's the vibe that they want. And so he had a liaison, obviously, between him and the A-ko crew, and they had a translator. But yeah, the singers, you already mentioned one. You have Samantha Newark, who again voiced for Gem and the Holograms. You had an up-and-comer at the time, Valerie Stevenson. So she was a child actress, and then also had parts with the A-Team, Guiding Light, and also had a co-starring role in Dreams, which is like an 80s show of like a rock band trying to make it. But Miss Valerie is no longer with us. She passed away from liver disease in like 2015. So 52 years old. But the two other singers are with us. And then we also have Annie Livingstone, who's the singer number 3.
Was she the one who did Follow Your Dream? Because I was listening to that one earlier.
Okay, so yes. Actually, Valerie Stevenson was the lead singer on Follow Your Dream. Samantha Newark led In Your Eyes. And then Annie Livingstone was Dance Away.
Okay,
And
yeah.
so each of the 3 girls got their feature. And then whoever was the feature, the other 2 were the backup singers. And that's how they basically went through there.
I think Biko's theme might actually be my favorite track from the entire OST. There's a lot of really good ones. Like I love the theme. The track is Explosion. That's the one that played during all the trailers for Project A-ko. But there's just something beautiful about Biko's theme. I specifically am a fan of the instrumental version with the blues guitar over where the vocals should be. It's one of those soundtracks that defines what the 80s sounded like in anime.
It is such an 80s track. Like you got the ballads, you've got the synth, because again, Joey is the keyboardist, so he was keyboarding the whole thing the whole time. Richie was doing all of the guitar stuff. So like dude starts shredding. Yeah, then you have again the guitarist George Derrick provided some tracks, and he was also mixing the whole thing. Like usually you have an entire staff of like, 5 or more people working on this thing, and you have a whole like set list of musicians. Like this is a very not just a tight schedule. This is like a very tight crew. It was essentially the 3 or 4 of them that they also like had 1 or 2 LA friends just coming in, and then you had the singers. And even when the filming for like this behind the scenes stuff was being shown, they brought all the singers in. Annie was actually wearing bowling shoes in the like they cut away, and she's not even kidding. Like they were just bowling. And then they said, okay, we're done bowling. We got to go do this filming. Like everything was recorded and submitted. This was just for a behind the scenes thing. They just brought him in to sing. So she's wearing her bowling shoes from the alley because they were bowling up until the last minute, and she forgot to take her shoes off. So she had to go to the bowling alley the next day and trade her shoes out. One of those fun little things fun little trivia. And another thing is these guys, after they did this movie, they didn't see their handiwork until the CPM release or later. So they didn't see
wild to me.
Yeah, they didn't see the results of their work until more than 5 years later. And like there's a moment where Richie like called up Joey and he was listening to this track. He's like, "We really made this? Like we were killing it. Holy crap." Like he completely forgotten. Like they had a fond memories of like the sets. But it was just such a lightning pace of a production for them that they just sent it away and then that was it. It is just like Aiko's soundtrack is it's got a song for everything. And I think like they really just they just nailed the vibe. And especially again, they didn't have any they weren't timing to anything. They weren't they had no footage. You know, the film was still being animated at the time. And it's not like today where you can just I don't know, send someone a file, you know, like that they were just getting faxed pages of Japanese text, you know, and just a bunch of designs. Like this is the kind of vibe that we're going for. It's like, you know, Joey Carbone, we love your DJ in my life that he wrote for a commercial for Honda scooters, or the Honda DJ scooters. He had the what he did with a lot of that was he said, well, I'm going to make this generic enough to where it can be worked in a commercial. They can use like this segment for the commercial, and the rest of it, I'm just going to produce it as a single, as a record single. And that's what he did for a lot of his music. And like DJ in my life, and then other aspects of like his catalog, he's got more than like he's got dozens of tracks in like the top tens of the billboards, or like the top 80s in like the billboards. And one of those like DJ in my life and other parts of like the Aiko soundtrack just took over the Japanese billboards. Like this was just it's just solid music. I really have no complaints, no gripes, no anything bad to say about this soundtrack. This is just 80s goodness wrapped in a blanket.
And if you own the OG CPM DVD release of this, you actually get the CD soundtrack as a bonus.
You do.
I've triple dipped on that release. I think the only anime release I've bought more than the Project Aiko releases is the releases for Black Lagoon.
It's like it just established so much. Like you can only capture this kind of lightning in a bottle once, in my humble opinion. You know, it's certainly the other movies are good in their own aspects and they do things, but in that case, you're expanding the lore. You're not really doing as much, or you have to take the humor in a different direction or find a way to continue the gags that worked from the first film. But like so much of this, because it's that first dip, because it's that first time, and because it was such an unproven concept at the time, this thing just completely took everybody by surprise. I think that's what keeps the first film just so special to me, just personally.
I would say that this is definitely an embodiment as to why I feel the 80s is anime's greatest decade. The 60s are anime's formative years. The 70s are what I deem to be anime's most important decade. The 90s are anime's most nostalgic decade. The 2000s, I'd say... the 2000s was anime's transitional decade. I'd say the 2010s were anime's biggest decade.
I'll take you up on that. I think we've had this conversation in the past, and we both agree that I think the 2000s were like the premier transitional decade and the most important for our current modern landscape of how, or at least like the modern production pipeline that we enjoy. Something like Project Aiko was like the embodiment of this is like the pinnacle of what we could do, or what they could do, going just completely ham. Like there's no, for one thing, there's no repeated animation across this film at all. Zero, none. There's also no CGI. All of everything that you're seeing is completely hand drawn. And this is a very, very detailed film. You know, so to see the level and just the master of craftsmen that put their all into this movie, this is what I see. Like, this remains in my eyes, like one of the pinnacles of traditional cell hand animation, especially for Japan.
It's an embodiment of just how great a decade the 80s were for anime, because thanks to a lot of really significant and important TV series that were airing around the time period, things like Fist of the North Star and Kinniku Man and City Hunter, The Dirty Pair, Zeta Gundam, Dunbine, and so many others, along with a boom in anime that were being made for the theaters, because, and I talked about this in the Cats of Cagliostro review, the 70s was a pretty thin decade for anime movies, but you look at all the great stuff that came out in the 80s, and like, Aiko is just an embodiment of what studios were doing, and of course, we mentioned this, the whole OVA scene when animators were just experimenting or making passion projects, Aiko is a passion project in the best way possible.
Unquestionably. Is there any last thoughts you want to do, Nate, before we sign off?
I always say that the best way to hook someone into anime isn't through showing them the big popular stuff or any long running series. Sometimes the best way to do it is through a movie. Because they say that it's a marathon, not a sprint, but movies are things that you can easily sprint through, and boy howdy, Eiko is one of the fastest sprints ever. I wouldn't suggest showing this to somebody who is new to anime. Show them a few to get them a feel of things before you throw them into the deep end with Project Eiko. But if you are already a fan who's already been seasoned a little bit in the weirdness of anime and you like things like Kill la Kill, or Gintama, or any of the wacky comedies put up by Trigger, or, the various works of JC Staff and all that, please, by all means, go and watch Project Eiko. It's not just a great embodiment of how great the 80s were, it's just a fun movie that'll have you laughing until you cry. And with that, I can say that I give this the Otaku Nate seal of approval because, as I like to say on social media, you should all watch Project Eiko because people deserve to watch more good anime and not solo leveling.
Nate, thank you so much for dropping by the Anime Field Guide. And yeah, we should definitely do this again, either on like maybe one of the sequels or something else.
I do want a pre-tier.
Definitely put pre-tier up on the docket. I loved watching Princess Tutu, and I need more Junichi Sato in my life. I think I need to. I've had pre-tier on the Crunchyroll watch list forever.
I'll do pre-tier for you if you'll do My Hime for me, because I'd always love to talk about that series, because people need to be more My-pilled. I am officially a pusher of the My agenda.
Nate, where can the good folks of the Field Guide find you?
If you enjoyed me rambling about Project Eiko with Dave here, you can find my podcast, The Otaku Nate Show, on Spotify, SoundCloud, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, any place you get your podcasts from. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook at Otaku Nate Show, and Natendo Wii on Instagram, that is NATENDOWII, where I am constantly posting photos of myself at sporting events, and I was just recently up in Buffalo for a double whammy of sporting events, including seeing New York's best sports team, the Buffalo Bandits, up in Bandit Land. And also, I post a lot of photos of cosplays that I like at conventions, and I always respect cosplayers who go for the more obscure stuff. The more obscure, the better. And also, be sure to stay tuned, because I'm currently about to record my next episode all about the aforementioned My Hime, so check that out.
Absolutely. You guys need to go check out the Otaku Nate podcast. Seriously, he does an amazing show over there. He's very entertaining, very, very knowledgeable, and of course, he has all the best guests. Definitely give him a whirl. But until next time, thank you for sticking around to the end of this episode. And until next time, stay safe. And as always, watch more cartoons.